On the morning of February 27, 2018, 25-year-old Patrick De La Cerda walked toward the front door of his family's home in Deltona, Florida. Someone was waiting outside the gate with a package. At least, that was what he had been told. His father had received a call from a man claiming to be a delivery driver. Patrick's name had been used. The request sounded ordinary, routine, the kind of thing people forget before lunchtime. But there was no package, only a trap. Moments later, gunfire shattered the glass at the front entrance of the home. By the time first responders arrived, Patrick was dead, shot multiple times just steps from his own doorway. Investigators quickly realized this wasn't a robbery. Nothing had been taken. This was targeted, deliberate, planned. What detectives would eventually uncover was far stranger than they imagined. Burner phones, missing surveillance footage, and evidence suggesting the murder had been carefully prepared long before that February morning. But this story is not only about obsession. It is about a man who had fallen in love, a future already taking shape, an engagement ring still making its way through the mail. Because on that morning, Patrick may have believed the person waiting at the gate had brought the future he planned to give Jessica. Instead, he opened the door to the person who had already decided to take it away. Before investigators uncovered burner phones, surveillance footage, and a carefully planned murder, there was Patrick De La Cerda. And like every victim, his story deserves to begin with his life, not his death. Patrick was born on June 4, 1992, in Miami, Florida, to his parents, Patricia and Max De La Cerda. He grew up alongside his brothers, Bryce and Justin, in a close-knit family that remained central to his life well into adulthood. Those who knew Patrick often described him in similar ways: outgoing, charismatic, the kind of person who could turn strangers into friends within minutes. He loved being around people. Family gatherings, celebrations, and weekend adventures filled the photographs left behind. Friends remembered his loyalty. Family remembered his warmth. Some people leave behind accomplishments. Others leave behind memories. Patrick left both. By 2018, he was living on his family's property in Deltona, Florida, where he worked alongside his father in construction. Building had become part of daily life. Long hours, hard work, and the satisfaction of creating something that would last. But Patrick wasn't simply building houses. He was building a future. That future had a name: Jessica Devnani. The two had met in 2017, and from the beginning, those close to Patrick noticed something. He spoke about Jessica with certainty, the kind that doesn't come around often. Sometimes people spend years searching for the right person. Patrick believed he had found her. Just 6 months into their relationship, he proposed. Not in front of a crowd, not beneath fireworks, just the two of them, sharing a quiet moment that would become one of the most important memories of their lives. Jessica said yes. The couple had begun planning a new chapter together, a move to West Palm Beach, a future side by side, and a life they were only beginning to imagine. Patrick had even commissioned a custom engagement ring for her.
He had got a phone call from his dad saying that there was a package being delivered at the gate. He thought it was the ring that was coming in that day.
By February 2018, it was expected to arrive any day. The ring was still on its way. Neither of them knew how little time remained. By the time Jessica Devnan met Patrick in 2017, she had spent nearly 8 years in a relationship she would later describe as controlling and abusive. Patrick felt like peace. Like many modern love stories, theirs began with a dating app. Jessica wasn't necessarily looking for a new beginning. After years of emotional turmoil, she was simply trying to rebuild her life. Then she met Patrick. He was outgoing where she was reserved, optimistic where she was cautious. He filled silence with laughter. She brought calm to his energy. They were opposites in the ways that mattered least, and alike in the ways that mattered most. Friends and family noticed the difference almost immediately. Jessica smiled more. She began imagining a future again. And Patrick, by all accounts, was certain he had found the person he wanted to spend his life with. Their relationship moved quickly, but to those around them, it didn't feel rushed. It felt right. Just 6 months after they met, Patrick asked Jessica to marry him. There were no cameras, no audience, no elaborate setup. The two were simply lying in bed together, sharing an ordinary moment, when Patrick asked the question that would change both of their lives. Jessica said yes. Together, they began planning what came next: a move to West Palm Beach, marriage, children, a home of their own. For the first time in a long time, the future no longer felt uncertain. It felt close enough to touch. Neither of them knew that while they were planning a new beginning, someone from Jessica's past was refusing to accept the ending. Every story about new beginnings has another side, the part that refuses to let go. Before meeting Patrick, Jessica had spent nearly 8 years in a relationship with a man named Greg Bender. When they met, Jessica was just 19 years old. Greg was in his 40s. At first, he appeared successful and established. He worked as a hedge fund manager and projected the image of stability, the kind that can feel reassuring to someone still finding their place in the world. But appearances are not always reality. Over time, Jessica would later describe the relationship as controlling and manipulative.
He was not accepting of it. It's almost like he never left. Like he was always shadowing my life. Like he was not accepting of it at all.
Then came another discovery. Greg had been living a double life. During a hospital visit, Jessica encountered a woman she had never met before. The woman did not introduce herself as a friend or relative. She introduced herself as Greg's wife. The relationship eventually ended. At least, Jessica believed it had. By 2017, she had met Patrick and begun imagining a different future. But according to investigators, Greg never accepted that future. As Jessica and Patrick's relationship grew, so did the threats. Messages were sent. Voicemails were left. Greg allegedly claimed he knew where they lived. According to testimony, he threatened Patrick and even members of Patrick's family. At times, he suggested he would hire someone to kill Patrick. Other times, he implied he would do it himself. The behavior became so concerning that Jessica sought legal protection. A court issued a protective order against Greg, restricting him from contacting her and requiring him to surrender his firearms. But later investigators would learn that not all firearms connected with Greg had been accounted for. On paper, boundaries had been created. In reality, obsession rarely respects boundaries. Sometimes the most dangerous person is not the stranger. It is the person who refuses to believe they have lost. And by early 2018, while Patrick and Jessica were planning a future together, someone else had begun planning something very different. Tuesday, February 27th, 2018, began like countless mornings before it. It was no sign that by the end of the day, lives would be divided into before and after. Patrick was home alone on the family's property in Deltona, Florida. His father, Max, had already left for work. Jessica had gone to her job in Orlando. Nothing about the morning seemed unusual. Before leaving for work, Jessica noticed a voicemail from Patrick. Simple, ordinary, the kind of message people hear every day, without realizing one day it may become precious.
I love you. Good night. Sweet dreams. Call in the morning. I'll call you. I'll send you a text when I wake up, all right? Love you. Good night. Bye.
The call never came. At approximately 7:20 that morning, Max received a phone call from a man at the property's gate. The caller claimed he had a package for Patrick. The property was secured by a gate, and deliveries often required someone to be let in. Max tried calling his son. No answer, so he sent a text. "There is a package at the gate." A few minutes later, another. "Did you get package?" Still nothing. As time passed, routine slowly became concern. "Are you okay?" Then one final message. "Call Jessica." No response ever came. Only silence. And then there was something else. 2 missed calls from Greg Bender, the same man who had threatened them for months, the same man who had been ordered to stay away. By then, Jessica's unease had become difficult to ignore. Investigators would later believe Patrick had gone downstairs after learning someone was waiting at the gate. There was one detail that made the timing especially heartbreaking. The custom engagement ring Patrick had designed for Jessica was expected to arrive that very week. He had been waiting for it, planning for it, imagining the life that would come after it. He may have believed the package at the gate contained the future he had promised Jessica. Instead, someone else was waiting at the door. Fear has a way of recognizing itself. Jessica left work and began the drive to Deltona. Along the way, she spoke with Max. He had not heard from his son. By then, silence no longer felt ordinary. It felt wrong.
When Jessica arrived at the property, she climbed over the locked gate and ran toward the house. Just inside the front entrance, she found Patrick motionless, lying in a pool of blood. First responders arrived shortly after, securing the crime scene. Detectives determined 4 out of 6 shots struck Patrick, shattering the glass door as he walked downstairs. Nothing had been stolen, confirming this was a highly targeted attack.
The investigation quickly pointed toward meticulous premeditation. The gate call to Patrick's father was traced to a disposable burner phone. While security cameras surrounded the home, the digital video recorder that stored the footage was missing. Near the entrance, investigators recovered shell casings from .300 blackout ammunition. Nearby surveillance cameras soon captured a vehicle registered to Greg Bender moving along the route to Deltona around the time of the shooting. With this evidence, police obtained a search warrant for Greg Bender's residence. Inside, they recovered ammunition matching the caliber used in the murder. But their most critical discovery was found inside a trash can. Investigators unfolded a crumpled piece of paper containing a handwritten step-by-step murder plan. The document detailed custom maps of Patrick's property, getaway routes, and instructions to swap out license plates. Although the murder weapon was never found, forensic data linked Greg directly to the scene. A shell casing recovered from Greg's home matched the exact ballistic signatures of the casings found near Patrick's body. Furthermore, cell tower records placed the burner phone along Greg's physical route on the morning of the crime. In 2018, Greg Bender was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. 3 years later, the case finally went to trial. Jessica took the stand, recounting the years of abuse and the threats she tried to escape. Greg's former wife also testified, helping prosecutors verify the handwriting on the murder plan. The defense claimed the written notes were merely a harmless fantasy, but the jury rejected the argument. Greg Bender was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. On what would have been Patrick's 29th birthday, his family met with Jessica to present her with the custom engagement ring he had ordered. She still wears it today. While Greg Bender planned a murder, he could not plan for the endurance of memory. Patrick De La Cerda's story is not defined by how his life was taken, but by how deeply he was loved.